Hello, Cash. How are you
Hello,
today?
hello. A little bit sleepy. I mean, it's the middle of the week,
I have
and it's and it's a little bit of a slow of a day, unfortunately. But other
drink a
than
cup
that,
of
it's.
coffee.
I think I did today. Yeah. I also, but coffee doesn't work on me. Like I tried some energy drinks, I tried some coffee, I tried tea, I tried basically everything that you drink in the morning to have some energy, and I'm like 19% sure that nothing works
Yerba
because
mate.
nah, come on. I mean, I tried yerba once, and I think I take 3 sips, and that was it because I don't.
Not your taste.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not. It's like it's not tea. I mean, tea is at least tasty a little bit. The yerba tastes like. Help me out. How would you describe it?
Uh, I know, but you have to try some different doses because they tell you to, I don't know, put almost entire cup of yerba and put hot water and drink. You can slower start with 2 spoons and drink like that. You don't have
Oh,
to put all this. I don't know what is named. This special cup for yerba.
oh yeah, the one with okay.
Yeah,
That's actually a good question. How much yerba do should you use when you're a beginner?
yeah. They tell you almost full cup, 3 quarters like that. Okay, but this is not why we are here. So we are here to talk about the very beginning of Starless Vagabonds, and you are one of the initiators. So what was your part in creating Starless Vagabond and Story Hunter Studio as well?
Okay, I mean, at the very beginning, I there was some, how should I say it? Because this is not the first idea for a game. I mean, Mateusz wanted to make a game at some point, and I was also willing. So there was other ideas for an idle games and such, but idle games or games in general have this little problem that they require a little bit of math, and especially when we talk about, let's say, idle games or RPGs or such, you have to, let's say, think about progression and about items and about enemies and such. So suddenly you don't make a game, you make spreadsheets where you have to put like 100 level of enemies, and you have to use some formula to make them stronger, but not too strong because that would be to the detriment to the player, but also not too weak because then game would be boring and such. So after trying to do something about that for a few days, we ask ourselves maybe there is something easier to be done, and we said, okay, maybe we should try text-based games, text-based RPGs and such. So we moved to that idea. I mean, the original idea is somewhere still in the cloud. I remember, I'm pretty sure there are files still existing. Yeah, I
I
think
think yes, I was reading the
yeah,
file before
I
our
saw,
meeting.
yeah, I saw them like a few months ago. So that idea might come to fruition one day. I mean, people still play Cookie Clicker, and if you check your mobile, I mean, not Apple Store. Although Apple Store probably too. Android Store, you will probably find like a dozens of them. Like, I'm pretty sure I saw at least a few today on the maybe still on the table somewhere. And I'm not sure about the four because I mean I saw at least a few multiplayer adult games at this point. So there is a lot of possibilities, but yeah, that one maybe one day. So yeah, but it was basically born out of the difficulty, let's put it that way, because I had very little experience when it comes to programming, and we were two people team, so we had to scale down to the level that would be manageable for both of us. So in retrospect, that might be mistake in some way, or maybe not mistake, maybe misstep. But I think that would be better because turns out that text-based games can also be pretty hard, even if you know what you are doing. So, but yeah, I would say the basic idea was to make something that we can actually make. So, and since you don't have any artist to make graphics, and since you don't, and also the budget was a little bit tight, so we decided, okay, text is cheap, text can be made pretty. I mean, maybe not as fast as we would like to, but relatively fast. There is no need to fiddling with the art style and such. So we said, okay, let's go that way, and here we are, basically.
Okay, and it is
Although now that I think about it, we both also had some experience with online text-based games. I mean, online RPGs.
that was my another question.
Yes, yes. Namely, I don't know how popular those are nowadays. I'm pretty sure there are still servers, and I know at
Yeah,
least
they are.
two people who still play them. Yeah, all those games based on the Valero. I don't know if H is silent or not. Engine that also still exists to this day, and also those smaller forums where you play RPGs. I mean, play by forum places, PBF, so called. I'm pretty sure one of those also still exists after all these years. I need to find it. But yeah, so basically, it was born of from a lack of resources, but also probably the interests on the text-based game. Because yeah, I was playing quite a lot of them, but I was playing quite a lot of them. So yeah, why not go that way?
You were fans of this
Uh,
game.
I mean, fans maybe it's a little too big of a word, but mm, I mean, when I was
Enjoyed.
yeah, but then when I was attending university, uh, for some time I was partaking in making one of those. I mean, uh, not from the technical side of things. I was more of a game master for
Hmm.
one of the Valero, whatever. For quite some time, I believe it was at least 2, 3 years, maybe. I don't remember exactly. It was quite a lot, quite some time ago. But yeah, I was working on the lore. I was working on the maps. I was working on the quest lines and such. So yeah, I would say it might affect the final idea to some degree. Uh, yeah, but yeah, after the fact, I mean, years later, I also gained some programming experience. So that was like one obstacle that I could overcome. So yeah, why not merge those two things, make like an actual single player game with text instead of graphics. Uh, but also there was that idea because how should I say it? There was some attempts at making so-called Skyrim with text. And we also, and because text is relatively cheap to make, we thought, well, how hard that could be. So let's try. And that actually was a mistake because it turns out that making text-based game like Skyrim is a little bit hard. And I'm not talking about maths and roguelikes and something like that. I'm talking about like direct translation from Skyrim to text-based game. But that's another thingy, another little mistake that we made along the way. One of the many.
And as I remember well, the first idea was it to be on desktop, yes?
Yes,
So why it
general.
changed? Why it's mobile, not text, not desktop?
Because there is quite, I mean, there's only few, quite few. There is not that much
But
text-based
as
games on.
I
I mean,
remember,
okay, okay.
yeah,
When you look at the desktop, yes, when you
yeah,
look at text-based games, and by that I mean also games that have a lot of texts, but also graphics, but mainly text, like Escape Torment or Tides of
hmm,
Numenera, or basically anything that Obsidian produced, like or in recent years Disco Elysium. Like Disco Elysium is basically like Torment. It's a book in the form of a video game with some interactivity, uh, and it exceeds at that. I mean, I can imagine Disco Elysium in the form of a text-based adventure games or choose your own adventure or whatever you want to call it, but it will lose a lot of charm without graphics. Which, but this doesn't change the fact that you have to read it. And I remember spending a few nights actually, uh, going through that game. I'm pretty sure I finished like 5 to 10%. I'm not sure how big that game is, and I had to stop for a little bit because yeah, the amount of text that I had to inject during like 3 hours was a little bit much. And also that game is dense. There is quite a lot of going on. Like one conversation can take up to half an hour, and and there is quite a lot of information in that. So yeah, I was a little bit tired and had to stop. So if you consider that, and if you consider, like, imagine an average person that will sit at the desk and just read,
yeah,
even if the text is properly formatted and such, that would be a little bit tiresome. I mean, people don't read. I, I mean, maybe some people, but most people don't read ebooks on their laptops, sitting on their
yeah.
desk. So, uh, so yeah, we wanted to put also the desktop version one day, uh, but then we also realized that mobile version one for once we need to learn how to do it, and that was also something new for both of us, and that text will be much more, let's say, pleasing, uh, read that way. So yeah, we decided to go first for mobile. The desktop version is still somewhere there, but I'm actually thankful that we went through the mobile version first, because turns out that designing quite a lot of, I mean, designing basically everything for those two platforms is quite different. And the version from mobile can be just, ported, and that's it, without
Mhm.
any bigger changes. So it was also quite a learning experience. I mean, this whole process was quite an experience when it comes to learning stuff. So yeah, mobile. I mean, desktop one day maybe we'll see.
So
That's
it was your first project on mobile devices?
Yes, actually, yes. On mobile, on desktop, and to some extent on the web. I mean, it was the first that I don't want to say ambitious, because the scale of the project is not that it's not really that big. I'm pretty sure you can recreate most, maybe all of it, using available tools here and there. But at the same time, it was ambitious because this whole project, apart from some external libraries and tools and such, was made basically from scratch, which means that we not only had to write it, we also had to design it, to test it, to iterate through it at least few times, uh, to remove all the kinks and such. And there is quite a lot. I mean, quite a lot. There is some stuff that I think went really well. There is some stuff that I think is okay, it's working. I have no complaints. But there is also some general flaws that makes me wonder whether or not should I start from scratch with another project,
Mhm.
because we can modify this one. I'm assuming we can repair this one, but on the other hand, I'm pretty sure that starting over from scratch would be pretty much easier and much faster. So this is this type of the project. When you go on, when you make a lot of mistakes, when you see those mistakes and you learn from it, and the next one probably would be much better because of that. But That is for the future, maybe. We'll see.
And how long it took you? 5 years or so? Yes.
That's, I
Because I
mean,
joined the team 2 years ago, and this year was released.
the
And
problem is that it was.
when it all started.
That's actually a better question because 5 years suggests that it was like from the year to year, like every day. Meanwhile,
No, no. The
I'm,
idea and general process.
the original version started. The work started in 2017, yes, but we had at least one big rewrite in the so-called meantime
Mhm.
of the game, and at least one rewrite of the tools. So I would say that the current version is more of like 4 years old, maybe three and a half, so something like that. And also, if you consider that at the beginning I was working on that after work. I mean, no, I'm sorry. At some point, I started to work on that full time. Then it was more of a side project for me. Then again full time. There was a longer periods of time when I would do nothing to it, like literally nothing. Then
Mhm.
there was periods of time when I would work on that like every day after work, like for an hour or two. So which is why I don't want to say that it's like 4 or 5 years old. For me, when you compress it a little bit, it's more of a like 2 years. It just stretched a little bit
Okay.
due to different circumstances.
And
But yeah,
why
actually,
science fiction horror? I was wondering because I know my Mateusz, and I know he likes fantasy. I know he likes science fiction, but why science fiction horror? Most of those types of games are more like fantasy games.
yeah, and that's the other problem because when you browse Android store and such, you will find like most of those games are fantasy, which is a
Yeah.
little bit boring at this point. Uh, I guess I was maybe not bored when it comes to fantasy, but I wanted something a little bit different because I'm pretty sure there was an idea for a text-based fantasy game, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it went away pretty fast. So I guess at that point we just wanted to make something more sci-fi-ish, and the horror. Hard to say. At the very beginning there was no like concrete motif there. Like if you want with the setting you can write whatever you want. I guess
Mhm.
the more horror aspects just arise like naturally during doing this whole process. Because I remember having some notes about what I want to put in the game, and there was some horror elements. But you could say that the idea of going through scrap of unidentified origin that is covering like a big portion of the solar system, when where you can find basically anything. And it feels kind of like Alien, and the original Alien was a horror movie, so
Yeah.
you could say that it's just organically went into that direction. That's it.
I was I had another idea when I was reading the script for the first time with the Event Horizon. This movie. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. Event
Yeah.
Horizon would also be pretty solid there. Event Horizon, Dead Space.
Yeah.
Any more let's say horror related idea you can put there and it would be fine. Because you are moving through to wreckage of a ships of mostly unknown origin. You can meet anything there, anything can happen there. So it's like, you can put a lot of other stuff there. You can put romance, you can put war story and such, but the idea, the setting itself, like I think promotes more, let's say, horror approach rather than anything else. So yeah. Well,
So can you tell me which ideas are yours in the script?
In the current script, not much because I mean the idea of having the graveyard in of itself, because it's like no brainer. You know,
Mhm.
when you want to create a game that can offer multiple stories and you want some freedom when it comes to writing those stories, then you have to I mean, you have to pick a place when you can do basically anything. So, okay, so we have a place where there are like hundreds of abandoned ships, and those are of unknown origin and unknown races and such, and everything there, and you can find anything there. Done. You can create any type of ship from like from like small corvette to a capital ship from any sci-fi franchise, and you can put also anything there. Like, do you want to create? I mean, do you want to recreate a System Shock story? Go for it. Do you want to create a giant temple, Warhammer 40k? Also go for it. Do you want to create a ship where two rough AI fights each other? Also go for it. Do you want to create a small station where a bunch of misfits just sits around living, so gathering stuff from around? Also, you can do that. So that was general idea that lies. I mean, the general foundational. Yes, I think that's the word. Idea for this setting that you can just put something there, create a backstory for it, create like a map so you can explore and traverse through it, and that's it. And you can also do add some additional background, some flavor and such. So yeah, that was more utilitarian than anything else, but I think when it comes to that, it works. So yeah, so
So,
so that was mine. I had some, let's say, general idea for the setting. Like, I mean, I sometimes, I don't have anything against more, let's say, shiny and epic sci-fi settings. But frankly, I mean, there's only so much Star Wars that you can watch, you know. And for this project, I thought you need something more subdued, like more close to the first or second Alien when it comes to atmosphere and
mhm.
technology, rather than, let's say, Star Wars. So which is why I left so out. I prepared some outline when it comes to the let's say power level, and that was basically it. The rest I left that for other people because that was not my responsibility anymore at that point. So yeah, I would say the basic setting and the outline of the background, and maybe general idea of what player will do. I mean, exploring stuff and gathering money for the. I guess the base idea was not to pay off the debt, but I guess that I mean the general idea was to gather money. Yeah, to gather
Yeah.
money up to some level. The idea of debt to the corporate overlords was added later, but I guess I mean, that also sounds like a natural extension of the base idea. So yeah, I won't
Yeah,
complain
Pavel
about that.
made a lot of work about the script.
Yeah, yeah, because as I said, he got on the outline and he went from there with everything else. So you could say that the base idea is mine, but I don't give myself credit for it because those baseline
Mhm.
ideas are pretty cheap and easy to make. So nothing to
And do
nothing
you
to write
like the
home.
way it went?
I don't. I mean, I don't really know actually, because when you give, how should I say it? When you give parts of the design and basically all of the story to someone else, the product is not really yours anymore. I mean, it's I, like imagine yourself as a part of, I don't know, CD Project, and you are working on Cyberpunk, and you are one of the hundreds, maybe thousands of people working on that one, and someone is asking you, do you like the direction, like, and the only thing that you've done for the last month was creating rock textures, for example, because you are a part of the graphics team, which is a part of the bigger graphics team, which is a part of something even bigger. Like you have this specific responsibility. Can you even answer that question? Because in my case, I just I left a lot of stuff to other people, and I just concentrate on the technical side of things. To be perfectly honest, at some point, I don't want to say I stopped caring because that's a little bit too strong of a word, But I think it didn't bother me. I mean, changes didn't bother me
Mhm.
because it wasn't like my project anymore. It was combined effort. And from the technical side, it was mine from the technical side, so I could concentrate on that one. But when it comes to everything else, it was someone else's project. So, and since the technical side of things wasn't really like on the top, since it's text-based, story-focused game, therefore the people writing the story have more to say about the game. Therefore, you could say that it's more of their project than yours, which is fine. I mean, I have nothing, no problem with that. Because there will always, I mean, if I had any problem with that, then there will be always another projects. I can still start my own if I would be like against the current direction. So yeah, at this point, I would say neutral. I mean, I'm happy when it comes to the how should I say it? Maybe not the direction. That's not really bothering me, or I'm not happy, but I'm also not sad. But I'm happy with the how should I say it, the end product because for a project that was basically a learning experience for me, that was made during a few years by a bunch of people. It ended up being pretty solid, even when you consider all the problems or the errors or the mistakes and such. So when it comes to the actual content, but I would say I'm more neutral. But when it comes to the overall product, from technical, artistic, and every other side, I'm pretty happy with the end result.
That's great. I really enjoyed playing it and reading the script.
The only
And it was quite fun and it was interesting. It has a very interesting storyline. Pavel made a good job, really good job, a lot of good job.
I mean, it was a process, and the more is coming in,
Yeah,
coming in soon. But on the other hand, yeah, I mean, because it's very story driven, there is only, I mean, some books you would like to read over and over again. Some
yeah,
other you would like once and twice. So this is what like one disadvantage that we maybe not forget about, but didn't take into consideration really because because okay, you can say that making animations and textures and such for like an item for a game that you will put inside, can take weeks, yeah. And you can
mm,
say that in the same time you can like write a few dozen, maybe 100 pages of text, so it can balance itself out in that sense. But on the other hand, but on the other hand we forget that forget more like didn't take into the account that how should I say it, people are more willing to see the same animation repeated
yeah,
dozens of times than reading the same text dozens of times.
yeah. True.
I see that, for example, when I play Stellaris. I mean, nowadays not so much, but the last year I was playing quite a lot of it, and I realized that after let's say third or fourth hour of playing in the one session, I would concentrate on when you have like events and you have to pick options. I would concentrate on the let's say mechanical results of those, like what I'm gonna gain, what I'm gonna lose, and such, instead of flavor text. The flavor text becomes noise because I'm a little bit too tired to read it. So
Yep.
yeah, that was a little bit of a mistake, I would say. Maybe not that big of a mistake because you can also play a game like Dwarf Fortress, which is which has a little bit of graphics, but it's also uh, people call it text-based game because it's mostly text. And for example, combat log in that game is only text-based. It's like two ASCII characters standing beside each other, and just that's it. When you see the map, but then you open combat log, and it's like a dozen, hundreds and hundreds of messages, and that can be enjoyable that I can read. So I think it depends on the context also. But yeah, that was our little mistake that we didn't take into account that people might be tired of reading the same story again and again. But at the same time, for example, I don't know how many times people replay Disco Elysium, and that is a book basically. The same goes for Planescape Torment. So I don't know. Maybe people will play this game two times, three times to check the different storylines. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to say because I don't imagine myself if I do one thing and no, I go back and read that whole again and try another. No, no, I would want do that.
Yeah, I would say I think maybe the story. I mean, maybe if
But
you
that's
have.
me.
Hmm? Hmm?
That's me.
I
Maybe some
mean,
people like to do that. So they choice.
I guess they like, but there is always a problem of multiple choices. Like not in the sense that you can just redo and try different one, but more like how should I say it? How many people really replay the game to check the different path? Like when you play Mass Effect, you have basically two. I mean, there is a lot of decisions there, but you have basically two lines, yeah, for Paragon and Renegade. Now the question is, how many people really play again the whole trilogy, for example, to play the other route, and also I mean, we are talking about only two, but there are games that will have three, four, and more. So, yeah, I would say most people won't replay. I mean, okay, you have games like New Vegas, yes, and people will
Mhm.
replay New Vegas over and over again, like dozens of times, uh, hundreds of times even, with different mods, with different parts and such. There are games like Vampire Bloodlines. Every time you mention that game, someone will replay it, reinstall it. Sorry. So, and there's also a bunch of decisions there, even though the story is like I would say pretty linear. So maybe, but but I'm pretty sure that those people are like I don't want to call them hardcore fans because I don't think it's this type of relationship, but I'm pretty sure those are very specific types of people, people that will actually replay the game, try it again. They would like to experience it again, uh, even with slight modifications here and there. So maybe if Vagabonds were designed from the ground up to do exactly that, then maybe. But yeah, that's another thing that we didn't. Or maybe we considered but decided to go with it anyway. Like there was quite a lot of discussions about the title and its mechanics and such during the years, and some things had to be changed due to, I don't want to say technical limitations, but more of like limitations of experience and skill.
Mhm.
Some things were changed because we decided to make them simpler or more complicated. So maybe at some point we asked ourselves, what if people won't replay the game? And maybe there was an answer, maybe there wasn't. So yeah,
It's good to have an opportunity to do this. It's an option, okay? You can, but you don't have to.
yeah, but then what's the point of creating a branching storyline when you won't experience different branches? Like I know most people just play the game once and leave it at that. So most people won't even play side quests a lot of the time. I'm pretty sure that when it comes to games like, let's say, Witcher, people will go through the main quest. Maybe they will do some side quests, the biggest one, the most interesting one, and they will leave the rest. Uh, which makes me wonder what was really the point of even making the side quest, or maybe what was the point of making the main quest when there are also people that concentrate on the side content. So, but yeah, when it comes to replayability, to people playing the same game over and over again, I believe I mean, there is probably a period when they stop. They will maybe try again, but most people don't. I mean, most people don't even finish games. Like God of War, the last one from 2019, I believe. When you go to the Steam, when you go to the PlayStation achievements, you will see that the final one for beating the game was claimed by, I believe, something like 50%, which is on one hand quite a lot, but then on the other hand, half of the people who bought the game didn't finish it. One
Yeah.
of the most hyped games of that year. So maybe people just don't finish stuff. Like in
Yeah, that's
general.
true. No, my boyfriend was playing Gods of Wars and he didn't finish. Lack of time, stuff like this.
Yes, but then you have people who didn't even start the game. Like when you see Steam achievements for Witcher, there is like 20%, I think, that bought the game and just didn't bother. And I mean, I don't have a Witcher on Steam. I'm waiting for the time to even play that game because it's so massive. But I'm pretty sure if I even had that in my library, it would also just lie there. I mean, I have at this point hundreds of games there, so and most of them from different bundles and such are just waiting there, sitting, and they may never be even played. So yeah, what's the point of creating a branching storyline when most people won't even play the game? Which is, I know that's like a very pessimistic approach, but it was one of the things that I was thinking about during the development. Because when you have a limited resources, you have to consider stuff like that.
I tell you, on my example, I when I was playing the Bard's Tale from
Uh,
2004, yeah, and I was playing a few times because my favorite game. I don't play much games, much video games, but it was amazing. I like it, and I was playing few times, and suddenly I found the walkthrough, yes, and there
mhm.
was a if you are nice here, then happens something different. You gain something more. You have better magic. If you are not nice, you are mean. Something they give you more gold. Wow!
Uh,
And I have to play it once again due to the walkthrough, so I can gain the most I can get from this game.
that's another thing because I mean that makes sense when you have like a lot of secrets and a lot of let's say maybe not hidden stuff, but okay, then yes, branching paths make sense. But you also here's the thing: you have to know about this, and you have to
Yeah,
care enough. Like when you play, I remember playing Planescape Torment for the first time with walkthrough. There was quite a lot of stuff, and then replaying it a few years later, and there was still stuff that I could discover because it was buried somewhere. Like I'm pretty sure there are still things in Torment that I didn't know about, and I still don't know about because even though I played it for like three, four maybe times at this point, and I'm always trying to go from beginning to the end, seeing everything and doing everything. But then, how much work do you need to put into a product to have such reactions? I mean, maybe for a game like Dark Souls, that has quite a lot of secrets and has a dedicated player base maybe. Maybe for a game like New Vegas, which is also quite massive and has quite a lot of secrets. But when you are like a single writer, then that is a doubting task, and I don't know if you really can pull that off. I mean, you probably can, but it will, take quite a lot of time. So, especially since when you work with text, you have to make sure that it's I don't want to say no, not easy to read, but pleasure. It's a pleasure to read it,
Yeah.
and since you have to make some, you have to use copy and paste here and there because you can technically write like six different versions of the same scene based on the player input, but at some point you will get tired of it. So there will be so Control C and Control V will come into play. So that is another problem, the repetition that you want to avoid. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that one person can pull that off, but maybe for not for the game of this size, maybe for not for the game that offers, I would say, I mean, mostly text. Yes, maybe if there would be something more to complement the text to help it a little bit. I mean, okay, there is exploration, there is items management, there are character stats. That's fine. That helps a little bit. But for the game like New Vegas, you also have companions. You have crafting. You have this whole system of perks. There is a little bit more going on there that you can also tweak, mix and match and such. So, but that's also a little bit bigger game that was created. I mean, it was created like a year and a half, I believe, but it was also created by a team of people, not just a handful. So it's different scale, unfortunately.
And it's pretty hard to replay our game when we have open world, so we always
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, but then the question is, do we even want that? Do we
For now, we
even
only have released the first part, so it's
the
not that much. You can still go back, but when we release the second part, and at explorations, it will be hard to replay all that stuff.
Yeah, but my question is there even a point of creating a game that is replayable when most people don't finish games?
Eh,
Is there a point to creating a game that you just play once and leave it at that? Like, especially since it's a text-based game, maybe you read book once, you have a good time with it. You can maybe read it again in like half a year, but that's it. You finish the book and that's it.
yeah,
But when it comes to games, maybe that's the way of doing this. Like, at least when it comes to more story-driven, more text-based. Like, I guess it's fine. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's fine to play again Disco Elysium, but Disco Elysium is very text heavy, and I have quite a lot of trouble imagining people that will go through all of this and then spend some time on other stuff and then go back and start again because it's commitment. It's a big commitment, and maybe that's better than that the game that the vagabonds are not really that replayable. That there are branching paths, yes, but you can finish that game once and be done with it. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I'm also not sure about. I mean, you cannot be sure about any part of this game at this point, which I guess it's fine, but at some point you have to pick one. So.
okay. So maybe something more about the development of Starless Vagabonds. You created also the scavenger engine, which is
Uh,
an editor to make
yeah,
all of that. And what was my question is which part of job was harder, making a editor or making the mobile game itself?
I like the word engine because it always implies something bigger. When I guess technically it is an engine, but when I think about that words, I think about Unity and Unreal and such, so something of a, let's say, bigger scale. But at the same time, I think Twine is also called an engine. No, you see, Twine is called a tool, so that makes it a little bit, let's say, humble. But yeah, I went with the engine and and stick with it. So what can you do? Uh, I would say engine was harder because since I was knowing only partially what I was doing, then the game and the engine. Okay, here's the thing: the game displays stuff created by engine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to have some kind of connection between those, some kind of synergy. And when you work on both, and you don't and you know partially only what you are doing, uh, then the end result can be a little bit messy. Considering that the engine, I mean the editor, has stuff like parser, so it takes the original data and it exports data for the game itself. Stuff like input verification, because this whole tool was created because writing adventures, writing text for the game by hand using the structure that the game will understand was tedious, was a big pain in the ass because you're not really writing text, you're writing the set of instructions for that game. It's like when you like create an item for D&D, let's say. Yes, you can create a description of that item, and but when it comes to powers, you have to open books, you have to open rules, you have to put it together. And for me, that might be doable to some extent, but take one person from the street and tell them that they have to write text, but they also have to remember about brackets, about semicolons and stuff. So that was a big no-no. Not to mention that I mean, it's I mean the editors exports data, and that data has to be somewhat. I mean, it's important. I want to say integration, but integrity. Integrity of the data is very important because
Yeah.
one missing letter here and there, one missing key, one missing semicolon, and the game will crash basically. Because there's also only so many places when you can check for that. So the tool was created also to avoid situations like that, to make sure that all the internal stuff will work the way that it should work based on the data provided by the writers. So it was created more of a necessity than anything else, especially when you consider situations like, again, branching paths, because it's easy to write a story. Okay, there is there is a tool that serves similar purpose. It's called, I think, Ink. So I'm sure. Inco. Yes, Ink. It's from the company. It's an narrative scripting language for games. Yes, and when you have tools for that, it's basically a text editor that formats itself based. I mean, it has text on the one side and the formatted version on the other side. And it's fine, but that tool works for a more, let's say, linear experience. Yes, when you have when you have more than two or three branching paths, it's important to see those because one can go this way, the other one can go this way, the other one can go this way, but there also can be some intersections between them. There can be dead
Hmm.
ends, and if you don't see that, if the only thing that you have is a block of text, and you have informations like go to 10, go to 11, go to 12, and that text doesn't that text contains everything and it doesn't go linear, so you would need to like move, jump, between the different parts of text. Like doing that would be tedious. Would be, I would say, even impossible to manage. So we had to create some graphical tool to even see what this dialogue tree even looks like, which turns out to be important because the very beginning is a little bit linear. That's true, but there are parts that are pretty complicated that without any graphical help would be very hard to manage. So yeah, at some point we just had to create such tool. Uh, but yeah, and because at some point the tool was created, I mean, at some point the tool had a little bit bigger priority than the game. Uh, that also was kind of hard to pull out because
Mhm.
I mean, okay, for the game I display text, I display graphics, I change the character stats based on the player's decision. That's fine. For the game, for the engine, I have to make sure that text can be put into Node, that it can be visible, that can be formatted in the some way. So I have to decide how to format that text, how to inform the game that the text should be formatted, how to inform editor to check if the text even should be formatted based on some rules. Like there is quite a lot of internal rules for the editor in order for the game to work better. Let's put it that way. And I think that was pretty hard to pull off, but to do. Uh, Mobile version was a little bit easier when it comes to. I mean, the only thing that I mean, the only hard part for the mobile version, apart from testing it, because there is a lot of phones that you have to take into consideration, and not even phones, devices in general, was testing because the game saves locally on the phone and testing that using all the tools that were available at the time and nowadays, it was not impossible, but it was pretty hard. Like it was much easier to test the game locally on my machine than on some kind of the mobile emulator. So I would say creating editor was much harder because it was it there was much more stuff that I had to take into consideration and much more internal ideas that I had to flesh out. Meanwhile, the mobile version, apart from testing, yeah, it was much. I mean, when you had a setup and when you had every tools ready, then the rest was pretty easy. So yeah, I would say editor. Uh, yeah. Next one, I mean, which is why when it comes to building next one, if I ever do that, uh, since editor and the game were created like not exactly at the same time, yeah, because there could be like a week, 2, 3 when I was doing something on the editor side and then implemented on the game side. There was there was quite a lot of differences between those, and especially since editor was first created after the game already. I mean, started developing the game, so there was discrepancies already quite a lot. So if I ever create another one, I will build them simultaneously. I will create the most basic version of the editor, the most basic version of the game, and then build both of those at the same time. Because
Mhm.
yeah, the way that we did that worked quite nicely, I would say, all things considered. But it was not like the best approach. But as I said, there was quite a lot of mistakes and bad decisions that we took during the development all of these years. So what can you do at this point except from learning from those? So yeah, editor, definitely editor.
And your job is not finished yet.
The problem is that the you could say that the job here will never be finished because we are talking about software, and software at any point can be, I don't want to say should be, but can be expanded upon. At some point, you can just open this piece of software and always say, okay, we can add this. and this and this. And it might be something minor, can be something bigger, but there is always something that you can add. And especially nowadays, when you can just make make an update and push it to Steam and be done with it. Like we have games like, let's say, Titan Quests that will receive patches and updates like years and years after they were ever relevant. Yes. So I would say this project will be closed only when we decide to close it. Because any other time it will always be unfinished. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah. So it's almost 8 p.m. So I think we're
Really?
done for today. Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Wow. And 1 hour has passed.
Quite fast.
So there's no questions on chat, as I can see.
I mean, it's not like people. I mean, it's a very specific topic. I'd say. I'm pretty sure that. I mean, this is something that you can see, for example, during the GDC conferences and such. More people will want to listen about postmortems and about design and stuff like that, rather than listening about technical side of things. Yeah, for the technical side of things, you have different conferences, I would say. So I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Sometimes
what,
we have some questions, but not this time.
that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So have a nice evening
And
and see you some other side. I
nice
hope.
evening to you then.
Yeah. So bye bye.
Cheerio.